lips are made out of hair. Okay, sometimes I just accidentally shave them
put
off.
that up. Nice.
Okay, so yeah, I'm starting to turn over a new leaf in this place, trying to make it actually presentable somewhat. Hey, thanks for joining us. My name is Ben, and you reached the Fanaddicts of Film, and this is our Avengers Infinity War review. And I've got my good cohorts with me.
I'm Claudio.
And I am the Mighty Joe.
Mighty Joe Young.
That's
Thanks.
right.
Thanks for joining us again. So just right off, I just wanted to say, when we first came out, of course, there's so much to digest, so much to undertake, and full of surprises and things that I did not imagine seeing in an Avengers movie. The first time, not the very first time, but it seems like the first time we're seeing real stakes and real drama and real weight.
Yeah, I thought it had a nice, hefty, dramatic haul to it.
Yeah.
Really good motivations for the characters. I've been frustrated with a lot of villains and a lot of things lately because I feel like they're all just sort of mustache twirling. Like, I've got dumb one-liners and everything is so and you just kind of go, oh my god.
Let me
and
tie
I think
into these railroad tracks.
Thanos' his motivation is actually really interesting. I mean, it's a little different than it is in the comic book universe, but I liked his motivation in this.
Yes, yeah.
That's what I was just talking to Ben about before you got here. Is Thanos was one of the biggest surprises for me because it's just like by the end of the movie you're just like, I kind of agree with him, and I feel bad.
Yeah. Well, it's like you're convinced that his heroism that he believes is real, that he's the hero of his own story. This villain is his hero.
Well, that's what makes the best villains. Characters like Kingpin in the Daredevil series, or Kilgrave and Jessica Jones, that they don't really think that what they're doing is wrong. They don't see that it's a problem, or they see it's a justifiable ends to a means. And Thanos. Spoiler here, he thinks he's doing a good thing, and so that actually made it a little bit more interesting for me.
Yeah, definitely, because there are moments where you're in his camp. There are moments where you're going, or not necessarily that, but you feeling his sense of like I said, his sense of heroism and stuff. So
yeah,
and it's like by the end of the movie, you're just like, okay, I see what you're doing. Like, I'm not agreeing with the way you're doing it, but I understand. And it's just like, there's just so many emotions that are just pulling from every direction by the end of this movie. You're just like,
a lot going on.
I don't know what to do.
I just wish that that there had been a couple more of my heroes in there that weren't. So that was a little bit of a bummer. But, they had to fit like 30 different characters in there. But it would have been nice to see Ant-Man and Hawkeye, especially Hawkeye, since he is an Avenger. He's a founding member. So, whatever.
Yeah.
And plus, they used Hasselhoff in Guardians too. So
that's true.
and him alone just appearing for 5 minutes is half the budget, right?
That means they need to bring Mark Singer, the Beastmaster, into the next one, Guardians movie, just because you've got raised the bar by having Hasselhoff. So now you've got to get the Beastmaster in there. So. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
No, I was actually, it was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. I mean, I didn't think it was going to be terrible, but when you have that many heroes in a story, I was just hoping that the third act wouldn't just fall into just convoluted, just nothing but, scenes from a video game. Instead, it went in multiple directions.
I think the analogy that perfectly fits it is, do you guys remember the third Batman movie? When you have Jim Carrey and Tommy Lee Jones, and you can tell the two are trying to outact each other. And it's just like, that's what I was expecting going in, like, especially when you've got like characters like Star-Lord and you've got Tony Stark, and you've got them all like, they're kind of the same person, but not really. And they're just, like, I was expecting them to just be one-liner-offing each other into oblivion.
And there was a lot of humor in it.
But
it worked. Yeah. And what's weird to me, though, watching the Marvel formula now that seems to work so well for them, mixing a lot of the humor. I go back and I watch some of the older comic book movies before it was a big to-do, when people kind of like, oh, you like comic books?
Right.
And now all those people, of course, pretend like they've been reading comic books their whole life and they've been loving this their whole life. But what I'm getting at is films like The Shadow, The Rocketeer, The Phantom, that all bombed. You watch them now and it's like, hey, That's the Marvel formula before Marvel had a formula for their movies. It's weird. I feel like those movies should have come out now, because now people would get them, and because they have so much of that humor and snappy interplay between the characters. And,
They were just
and I
before
like
their
that.
time.
They were.
So the things that stood out for me right off, like of course, my favorite part of the first half, the first third of it was Gamora. It's always been Gamora. I've always been floored by her performance, and of course her sister. What was her
Nebula?
Sister? Nebula. Those two, their dynamic in the last Guardians flick was amazing to me. I love their whole story with dealing with it, and I loved how it went into you get to see Gamora as a child and being
Chosen by Thanos.
That was the biggest turning point in this film for me.
Spoilers.
Forgive us? Yeah, sorry, spoilers. This the scene where you see all the tragedy that is Gamora's life and being taken by Thanos as such a young child, and look away while they do their thing. So that was just crazy.
Another one of the things I loved about this movie is how it tied into so many. I mean, this has basically been the culmination of 10 years and 19 films. When Ant-Man comes out, it'll be their 20th film, and then when Venom comes out, it'll be their 21st. But this is the 19th film.
Venom's Sony.
Marvel tied to it. It's in the same universe as Spider-Man: Homecoming, therefore it's in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah, it's good to know. That's
because Peter Parker's supposed to be in this. So, and it'll probably be like a post-credit scene or something.
No, I'm thinking it's going to be like Eddie's walking down the street talking to himself, and then he just bumps into Peter, and he's like, "Oh, sorry. Oh, it's okay." And then that's it.
It could be. But the thing for me is it was a culmination of 10 years of watching these films that they tied up elements that, like for instance, in the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie, where they first they didn't first introduce Thanos in that movie, but the hatred that Nebula has for Gamora because she was the chosen one, and then that really plays into this film because she was chosen by Thanos. Like he says in the film, he wants her to succeed him. And I thought it was really, it paid off. Good job, Marvel, in tying all that together. It really paid off.
See,
Go ahead.
With this one, I just felt like it made me realize that like all the characters are not the main parts of the story. Like each story, it's like each Infinity Stone. Like you've got, parts of Iron Man and parts of Captain America or the Tesseract. I can't remember which Infinity Stone that was. The blue one. And then it's like you've got Soul Stone, you've got like all these different things, and then like all the stones tie together in this movie.
Yeah.
Like, and it's.
Dude, it really felt like I was reading a comic. It could have been like 5 issues, crossing the different titles. Spider-Man, Avengers, Iron Man, whatnot. And it really did feel like it was like reading a big crossover story arc in the comic universe. But they actually pulled it off really well.
And like I was saying before, it reminded me of the first time I read a seriously devastating X-Men comic. So many people, they were still able to keep each story saturated with real, keeping it grounded.
Well, they had multiple subplots, and each subplot fit the whole, and there were no loose ends. A lot of times, a lot of shows will have multiple subplots, and then they just kind of get abandoned. It's like, no, all the subplots, they're leading to this to the third act, and everything comes together really nicely. And it does leave you on a cliffhanger, but it's not enough. You get your money's worth.
I feel you keep saying that the ends were left they were all tied, but I feel like some of the ends were burned. Maybe I don't know.
And if you've seen it by now, you know what we're talking about. Should have like a shot, like a gun noise.
I get it.
That's what we're gonna call this.
It ended on a cliffhanger, but all of the subplots of where all the characters were and were going all came together.
Yeah.
So it's not like
I know what
it's not like anything was abandoned and you're going.
Right.
But what happened to that one dude that was on there?
Right. There's nothing left unturned.
Like certain shows, I won't mention, American Horror Story, where they have like all these subplots that go nowhere and they quickly abandon them, and like then at the end it's like, oh, we've gotten together to do 13 episodes. Oh, how do we end this? You should have this all plotted out before you go to filming. And these guys clearly did their job. So writing this Avengers story. Plus, It's who was it, the Rousseau brothers?
Christopher Marcus. Sorry, we're looking at the writers.
Yeah.
So some of the writers that worked on this, which of course, when it comes down to it, it comes down to the writing. That's really what it comes down to.
They had worked on other Marvel properties like First Avenger, and the guys that directed this film are the same guys that did my two favorites up until this point, Winter Soldier and Civil War, which are I'm Team Cap.
I just said
all
that
the
before.
way.
Those are my two favorites as well.
Yeah.
Winter Soldier was my favorite until tonight.
Yeah.
Just because.
Yeah.
Bucky's my favorite character.
Bucky's cool.
Yeah.
The Winter Soldier.
He really is. It's the way he's been built up, and it's just his mere presence and when he smiles on camera. It's like, I love that guy. I mean, like I was saying to Joe just earlier when we were watching this, seeing Steve Rogers and Bucky together just as friends, it's like you believe these, even though they're just actors working and just doing their job. You believe that they're best friends. You believe that they've because if you haven't seen the first Avenger recently, check it out. It'll reinforce all that stuff for you.
Man, I just feel bad for anyone who goes to see this who hasn't seen the other 18 movies prior. Boy, are you going to be lost. I think it's entertaining enough that you can follow the story.
Right.
But you just won't get all the little...
everything else.
All the characters and everything.
Yeah,
so,
all the details.
Yeah, wow.
And I hope there isn't. I hope that everybody has, at least it'd be interesting to find out what the ratio is, like how many.
Yeah.
I think I'll finally go check out an Avengers movie. I missed all 18 of the previous movies, but I'll check this
Or I've only
last
seen
one out.
one or two here or there.
Right.
Wow, that's gonna be a rough one.
I'm gonna see what the hubbub's about. I'm gonna go and see it because everyone won't shut up.
And then not get any of it, and then just be like, "This sucks," or maybe just really like it and not care. It's just one of those funny things where you don't know.
Explosions.
I would love to find that out though.
I still, God, I hope that Ant-Man and Hawkeye are in the next one, because I know this is part one of two, but I'm really hoping that they make an appearance.
Yeah, and like we were discussing before, we didn't see them in this movie, or at least it would be interesting to find out whether the next Ant-Man movie is going to actually take place before, after, or contemporary of, and we all know, of course, Captain Marvel is going to be. I guess it's apparently taking place in the 90s, so that's supposed to be actually taking place.
Her movie?
Yeah, her film.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So whatever. Yeah.
I thought you meant like with the next one. I was going to
no.
What? So no, that's cool. I'm actually looking forward to the Captain Marvel movie. I prefer the DC Captain Marvel myself, but for copyright reasons, we'll call him Shazam. But I do think that Captain Marvel for the Marvel Universe has been a cool character. I know my brother used to read. I still have issues of my brother that he passed on to me from the 70s.
Oh, really?
Yeah. When it was Captain Marvel was still
cool.
a dude, and it had Rick Jones in it, who's another character in the Marvel Universe that I'm surprised they haven't brought into any of the movies. I'm surprised he wasn't in the Hulk movie, because he's always so closely associated with the Hulk and Captain Marvel. He becomes Captain Marvel's sidekick for a long time. He's just like one of the coolest sidekicks in the old Marvel Universe, but I digress. A lot of characters in this movie had the helmet. Did you guys notice that? Because you got Black Panther, you got Iron Man, and you got Iron Spider.
You got like the Pez dispenser of helmets.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, oh, it got ripped off. Oh, it got destroyed. Oh, it's okay. I've got more.
Well, and speaking of suits, the Iron Spider suit, and I love the legs thing that happened there.
Yeah.
But sorry, we're gonna do minor spoilers. We're not gonna do too crazy spoilers here, but minor spoilers. At least that's the plan. We'll see. See what happens.
What happens.
But yeah, I was particularly impressed with Iron Man fighting Thanos. That was a great moment.
Well, Captain America fighting him too.
Yeah, of course, all of them. But
just.
Yeah.
He's throwing the punch with the gauntlet, and Steve Rogers is just kind of holding it back, and just that look on Thanos' face,
badass.
Yeah.
This guy's doing this thing. That was really cool.
I thought there was a second where I thought that he might actually overpower him for a second, but to no avail.
It was cool to see the Hulk battle with Thanos at first too. The beginning with Loki and we got a Hulk. I thought that was great.
That was great.
And then unfortunately, Thanos is much stronger.
See, I was actually kind of hoping when that happened, when Steve's sitting there going toe to toe with him, I wanted to be like, I can do this all day.
Yeah.
Something like that.
A nice throwback.
But that's the thing, though, is like they did throwbacks, but they did it tastefully.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like all the characters work so well. It's like you care about a different character for different reasons. Like, when we were talking about this, even Loki. Like, going into this, you're just like, I don't know what Loki's deal is. All I know is that I like Loki.
I like Loki. He's a good complicated bad guy. Or is he a bad guy?
Anti-hero.
Or is he? He's like kind of an anti-hero, but still a villain. I don't know. But yeah, nice little, I wouldn't say even throwbacks as much as just, it's kind of self-referential. And I like that, because that's how it is. Like when Thor sees Steve Rogers after all this time, apparently, who knows how long they've been separated, but and he's just like, "Oh, you got a haircut," and he's like, "Oh, I see you've done my beard thing."
That's right.
I thought that was funny.
that was great. That was great.
Lots of good humorous touches.
What was that one joke where it's just like, are they an Avenger? I don't know. I haven't been on Earth for a while. They could be.
Oh, who was the? It was wasn't it a singer? It was a good joke.
Kevin Bacon.
That's right. Kevin Bacon, the actor. How would she know Kevin Bacon? Oh, because of Star-Lord and his weird obsession with Footloose.
Well, but that's a funny part because you do find Star-Lord like being contemporary of like Earth's things, but it's like he doesn't really make sense if he's been gone from Earth that long. I guess maybe he's visited or still somehow keeps in touch with Earth culture. I don't know. It's just
probably the things that he remembers from his youth. But what I loved about that joke was Star-Lord's like, isn't Footloose like still the greatest movie ever? And
it never was.
And Spider-Man's just like, it never was. It never was.
Speaking of movie references to him saying, that really, really old movie, Aliens?
Oh, I kind of wanted to just hit him upside the head and go, come on, kid.
Well, because he does the same thing in Civil War with
you guys see the old movie Empire Strikes Back?
Yeah, and you're just like,
and then
the walking thingies.
Then Tony's like, no more pop culture references out of you. I mean it.
Well, I really had a good time at this film. I think what's the total running time? 2 hours and 40 minutes? 3 hours?
Yeah, the credits were rolling. I'm like, come on, no, like half an hour. You can do.
I was surprised that they only did one post-credit sequence. I thought they might have done two.
Yeah.
To see like the Ant-Man movie or something, but they just did the one, which is fine. But I mean, I think it's nearly 3 hours, and it really doesn't feel like it at all. It just hits the ground running. It doesn't stop, and it's just a lot of fun. A lot of fun. Which is incredible to look at.
Yeah. Which is, and I kept saying to myself, this is what the Justice League should have been. Anyway, that's my 2 cents on it. We don't need to go there. I'm just saying I thought for a couple of seconds, this is what the Justice League could have been as far as that. So
the problem with the Justice League was Marvel took time because they were the first ones to strike this. So they took time. They set it up. They're like, okay, we're going to start with Iron Man. Then we're going to do this. Then we're going to go to Captain America. Then we're going to do this. Then we're going to do this. And then freaking Warner Brothers is like, let's shoehorn in as many people as possible in this one movie.
Well, it's just bad planning. It's just bad planning.
It wasn't like it was their first movie right off the bat. It was their fourth in the fifth in the series.
It was just
still,
bad planning.
I think what they should have done, and is each character should have gotten their own individual movie before crossing them over. But the problem with that too is then people would go, "Oh, they're just ripping off Marvel." But they rip off each other. That's what they do.
Yeah, but when it comes down to it, if they know that a formula works and it had worked, it's like, why not at least kind of adopt it or at least go that direction? Anyway,
yeah. Well, and I mean, again, this has been 10 years building. 10 years,
right.
19 films, several cast members, and it really paid off. It really paid off. I do wish that in some ways, because I do enjoy the DC movies a lot, because I'm a bigger fan of DC Comics than I am Marvel. But at this point, I'd have to say I'm a bigger fan of Marvel movies than DC, just because they keep just doing really good movies.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes when you get movies, modern filmmaking, I've noticed every trailer before this movie is just this big spectacle film, a movie about special effects and another movie about special effects. And that's fine. I like special effects, but a lot of the times, and it started making me worried for this film, because a lot of the times you get too many special effects. It's all CGI. It looks like a flippin' video game. My hands kind of start doing this. I'm sitting down in the theater like, left, right, block, block, block! And I just feel like they spend too much time focusing on like
cartoon
bigger
action
is
sequences.
better instead of like the actual storytelling. And I think that this is a rare film that's up there with films like maybe not quite the depth of like The Dark Knight, but films like X2 and Spider-Man 2 just that have a good emotional core amidst all the action sequences and things, you know.
And it's the thing that I really liked is they didn't force the impossible choices, but they kept having them.
Yeah.
There was like 5 or 6 of them.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
Yeah,
what are they going to do? What? I'm like 20 minutes in. Why are they? There's already an impossible choice? And then,
So really quick, maybe we could just talk quickly about the Russo brothers. Like, I'm just glad that they're doing this. I'm really excited to see. I mean, they came from Community, right? I mean,
They're from Cleveland,
Right.
in Ohio.
yeah, but they were producers on Community.
Yeah.
I
But
think it was producers. Yeah.
Yeah.
But just the fact that now it seems to me like these guys, at least from what we've said so far for the Avengers films that we've seen so far, it sounds to me like these guys, they're our favorites. You know, Civil War, Infinity War now, and
Well, I feel like they get the material.
Are they doing Infinity War 2 or whatever comes after this?
Whatever it's going to be called, because I don't think they're going to call it Infinity War 2, but
right.
but I believe so. Yeah, no, I feel like they really get the material in a lot of ways that a lot of other writers and directors just haven't, or that, and it's not to diminish, because I have enjoyed. I mean, I didn't love the Green Lantern film, but I enjoyed it. It got enough of the elements from the comic lore, but I feel like the people who wrote and directed that film didn't necessarily know the material that well. You know, Bryan Singer wasn't really familiar with the X-Men when he did the first film, and I think the first film's good. But it's like by the time you got to the second film, you're like, okay, now he's working with people that really understand these comic characters.
The third movie happened, and we're just like, what the hell?
I've seen much, much worse. X3's not a great movie by X-Men standards, but it's also no Birdemic or The Room. So people need to stop with all the hate, man.
So the point was that I was trying to get to is that, for me, this film felt like an awesome graphic novel, like just something that I could not put down, and that's what it's supposed to feel like. It's the ultimate culmination of comic books and people who read comics. I mean, I didn't read the Avengers as a young kid, but I read a lot of X-Men, and I did read some other Marvel stuff, and I read some Superman and all kinds of other things, but. Honestly, these guys know what they're doing, and just coming from things like Community and just this kind of this doing TV. I think it's just an extraordinary feat. I just think it's wonderful. I just hope that we see more from them.
Well, I feel like that's what I look for in a comic book movie, because I grew up, as Ben and I grew up at a time where comic book movies weren't all the rage.
Yes, they were
You get
not.
1, maybe 2 a year, and one was usually a major studio, and the other one was usually more independent.
Dolph Lundgren as the Punisher.
And no one got the material then.
No one wants the Dolph Lundgren Punisher, but yeah, no, exactly.
But the thing that was there that Joe was making the point before is that no one got the material there at all. It's like now we actually have people who work in the industry who gets it now.
I mean, there were like Superman the movie really does get that. And that's the grandfather of all these modern superhero films, because I feel like it's still the template by which Wonder Woman used the Superman the movie template in telling its story in 3 acts and the origin and everything, and it still stands up. I think visual effects might be dated, but story-wise, that movie's still just grade A. But what I mean is, we grew up at a time with limited releases, and it was not something that people thought was cool to go and see. And part of it was because people that were making, half of them were made by studios that they just wanted to get money off the built-in franchise and do merchandise, do action figures, and without really getting the property. And other films that would come out, people would understand the property. I think Joe Johnston did a great job with The Rocketeer. It's a fantastic adaptation.
I love The Rocketeer.
It's a classic. But I feel like now that we're kind of oversaturated, I still feel like there's a lot of studios that are and producers that are missing the point. And what I look for in a comic book adaptation is it doesn't have to be 100% faithful, and unless it's a graphic novel or a limited series, you're not going to adapt something that's been running for 30 plus years and get it all in one movie. But it's how faithful are you to the characters and their adaptation? But it's also not made. I understand that they're not made just for comic book fans. No studio is going to drop $130 million on a film for 40,000 people that read this one comic. They do want to try and get everybody. So a film like this that's trying to go for the general audience and get the people who only know the Marvel characters from these movies and try and get that audience in, as well as the comic book fans, I think they really understand the balance between humor and action and drama and mixing it together.
Right.
It's got a good beginning, middle, and an end, and it just works.
And to all tell a damn good story.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things I was really kind of worried about. I think I touched on this earlier, but the jokes. I was like, they're either gonna run
too much.
Yeah.
It's either they're just gonna go way too far into it, because it's kind of like what Deadpool says. He's like, "You're really dark. Are you sure you're not from the DC universe?"
Yeah.
But like, I was expecting them to be like, well, everyone expects it's gonna be funny, so it's either gonna be oversaturated with jokes, or it's gonna be super dark and dry.
Yeah.
And instead they found
it had a nice balance.
Yeah, good balance between the two. Because Thor did the same thing. Guardians, they do the same thing. They figured out how to throw in like good humor without it being overly comedic. Because then after a while you go, okay, come on.
Well, especially when you're doing it between like at the beginning, beginning of Thor 3, you have he's hanging by a thread or whatever, and he's messing with the demon. Forgive me, what's his name?
I forget the demon's name, but he's voiced by Clancy Brown. Just
really, which was really. If they had taken the humor too far, then the villain becomes less threatening, and it becomes less. There's just less weight in it.
Can I just say though that my favorite scene though has to be when they're on Titan and everybody's a spoiler here, when everybody's taking multiple turns attacking Thanos, and Star-Lord gets his like boom when he jumps through
people love
that. That was
a great moment.
Thank you. And it was cool that Nick Fury, another spoiler, Nick Fury has a small cameo in this, which we've all been waiting for a long time.
Yeah, it's been a while.
And he got his trademark Sam Jackson line in there.
Yeah, that was
almost, and that was perfect. That was
actually
so good.
Pretty funny.
I really have to say real quick too, I was surprised. I was hoping he might be contacting Agent Coulson. Like I really want Coulson to come back to these movies and just at least have Steve Rogers do kind of like a "I thought you were dead" kind of a thing.
Right?
You know?
Yeah, like that, and that's one of the things I've actually read numerous articles about that, and they are, at least so far, Marvel has just been saying no, we're not going to bring him back because it's just it would confuse the regular audience too much because they think he's dead. But honestly, at this point, I don't think the regular audience remembers him at all. Like the average person that doesn't watch, it's like when I tell people that I watch these movies multiple times, they're like, "Oh, you've watched that twice? What? Wait? Oh, you mean I haven't seen that movie for 10 years, but you've watched it a second time? Oh, that's weird." It's like
no, I get that a lot, and I'm like, yeah, I've seen like Evil Dead 2. I couldn't even count how many times I've seen. We could count it all, and we still don't have enough fingers in this room to tell you how many times I've seen it. So what?
But I just think all the people that are at least the people that really care are watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and really care and would love to see Coulson back.
Yeah,
I would love to see Coulson back. I'm a little bit behind on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but I actually really enjoy the show thoroughly.
This season's been good. In fact, it seems to me that they've been kind of, in a way, kind of leading into this. It's going to be interesting to see what happens this Friday, to see where they pick up, because it has to affect that show. It just has to.
Yeah, and it usually does, at least.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to bring Coulson in because he's got his whole thing. I won't say what's going on.
Yeah,
please
don't spoil it with me.
But Coulson's got his own stuff going on, and
he always has his own stuff going on.
But what I'm curious to see what happens. Like, are they going to sidetrack their entire thing they're doing on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. right now and be like, okay, half of the population's gone?
Yeah, that's what I mean. They're going to have to touch on it somehow.
And there's a massive explosion that happened in like 3 cities.
Infinity Wars is time. We've already seen that Thanos can reverse time. Obviously, that's going to... They wouldn't do what they did in the film if we couldn't somehow reverse that. Do you know what I mean?
And someone pointed out this incredibly well on YouTube and talking about like once they introduced time travel, because they Spoiler alert, they introduced a little bit of weird time travel stuff.
Gotta get back in time.
In Rebels. So but they talked about this time travel that is literally unlimited power, and that's basically what it is. It's just unlimited because anything happens, you can switch it up, and that's
I think that's what Spider-Man does. Like, he's been rebooted like 3 times now.
Yeah.
Like, so that's like,
and James Bond, but he's a Time Lord. I just think he just regenerates into a new guy. But and then he regenerated into George Lazenby and went, yeah, this isn't working out. I kid. That one Bond movie that nobody ever watches. That's my favorite one. But Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. did the whole time travel thing, right? It didn't affect anybody here because they fixed time. I actually thought it was cool because it went cosmic. It was very cosmic, and it had the Kroll and the Kree, and I thought that was really cool. That
reminds me of one of the biggest points that I found. Like, there were parts where throughout, I believe it maybe have been the second act, where I'm just going, wow, we're in kind of a space opera now. This is kind of a space science fiction fantasy film for a minute, and I love that. That's where we're going. Like you said, making it cosmic and everything.
That's what they did with the Avengers movie and with Thor's. They took them all they're getting all super cosmic now, and so it makes sense to have Avengers. Maybe not so much Daredevil and Jessica Jones and Luke Cage and all of that. And Inhumans, if they get a second season, which I kind of hope they do, even though it wasn't a very good season and it wasn't very popular, I feel like they were trying to find their ground, but I feel like they could fit in because they're part of the whole Marvel cosmic thing.
Well, the characters are actually really cool in Humans, and so it's like
it's just the story was a little.
I know that this won't happen, but I would love it if they just rebooted that. But that won't happen for a long time.
Well, but what I mean is like through time travel, things have already changed on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., so it's very possible that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. might not be affected because of what will happen with the next Avengers movie and resetting the time, because it's going to have time travel's obviously got to be a big part of it, And can I just say, Doctor Strange and his cape,
so good.
I have to say that I feel like he stole every scene that he was in.
He was so great. Bennett, well, you got to hand it to Ben Cumberbatch, man. Yeah. He's so great.
See, I liked how how all of the villains are growing. Like, it's like, I know you don't like this, but Dragon Ball Z, like, there's like, the Saiyans are this strong, and then after that there's Frieza, and then after Frieza there's Cell, and then it keeps growing stronger and stronger and stronger. It's like on Looney Tunes when they keep pulling the guns out, and it's like they keep trumping each other.
Right. It's just they take an entire episode for one person to power up. That's all.
Yeah, but that's the way it is, and like Thanos is like to this level where he's just like end of the universe.
Yeah, he's just becoming an even bigger. In video game terms, he's just becoming a bigger boss. He's just like the ultimate boss.
The music just sped up and we're screwed.
Yep.
Boss on World 12, level 15, or no, World 12, World 8, level 4, 8.4.
I thought, I like Josh Brolin a lot. Of course, he's always going to be Brandt from the Goonies for me. If I ever saw him in real life, I would be like, Goonies never say die. But I'll tell you, the makeup on that was so weird because I kept thinking Josh Brolin is Bruce Willis as Thanos, and it looks so much like him that in the artwork I was like, that is not Josh Brolin, that is Bruce Willis. But look, look at that image. I'm looking at the image right now, and I'm telling you, that looks like Bruce Willis to me.
It is funny what mocap can do, huh?
Yeah.
Or is it motion capture or performance capture?
Performance capture.
So what's the difference between those two? Do you know, Joe?
I think motion capture is pretty much where you're just capturing the motion, but they're going to animate something completely different on top of you. Where the performance capture, it's essentially the same thing, but the difference is, I believe, is that
it catches more of your actual face.
With the performance capture, because you could see Josh Brolin's face in there.
That's what I see when I see Thanos. The guy from Pawn Stars.
We'll put an image up. It's the guy from Pawn Stars. Yeah, that guy.
But Josh Brolin, he's always good.
I don't want this guy.
He's great.
It's weird how many comic book films he's done now, because he's Thanos in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He's Cable in the Marvel X-Men films, and
the Fox.
He was also in Men in Black 3, which, again, most people forget that was a Malibu comic, and Malibu comic is owned by Marvel, so in a sense, it is a Marvel comic movie. But,
yeah.
I want all of them to team up.
Yeah. Well, God, man, I tell you, when they were attacking New York, I would have loved to have seen, like, wouldn't have mattered if it was CGI and it's in the background, just see Daredevil swinging by. Luke Cage punching somebody.
I had the plan on how to bring Daredevil into this movie. Like, I just pictured Captain America rushing people out to say, "Come on, go, get to safety." And in this crowd, you see, like, torso, from like upper torso up, you see like the mask and the arm, and Deadpool's just being dragged by this mob of people. And then he's just like, "Crap, God, get out of my way, stop,
Wait,
out."
Deadpool?
Oh, this would be so much more. Or
You mean
not
Daredevil?
Daredevil.
Okay, yeah.
No, Deadpool.
No.
And he's like getting dragged along.
Deadpool's
like,
in a different
Yeah,
continuity.
I know, but I want to bring him in
Wow.
this and have him being like pulled off and him being like, "Dang
I
it,
don't.
freaking crap. Oh,
I
crap.
don't want him in
This would be
this."
so much more impressive if I could actually swear. You know?
It would be so much better just to keep him in that universe and not in this. Eventually, though, the X-Men are going to have to be rebooted because they're going to eventually cross over because Fox will be owned by Disney and Disney will own Marvel, and they're just taking everything back. So eventually, we'll see the Fantastic Four in this universe. We'll see. We'll see the X-Men, but I personally feel like Daredevil, out of all the Netflix shows, Daredevil, I think, is one who could translate well to the screen. Maybe not in his own movie, but in an ensemble
And
film
not with
like
Ben
this.
Affleck.
Yeah. Hey, it's not Affleck's
Everybody
fault. He
hates that.
actually did a good job. It's the writer and director and Colin Farrell and the music selections of that movie that made it crap. Everyone puts this like it's all Ben Affleck, like he wrote and directed it or something. He just played the role and he did it quite good.
He was just doing his job. He was just playing a gig.
In fact, I'm glad that a lot of the comic book movies have moved away from having like pop songs in the soundtrack. You know, I'm glad that they're getting more orchestral and stuff and moving away from that.
They just started doing more like what Star Wars started, like where they're it dates a movie more if you have the pop culture kind of music.
Yeah.
Well,
The only exception is the Guardians of the Galaxy. That somehow adds to those without dating them.
well,
it's because-
Iron Man, but that's because he's listening to like, you know, Black Sabbath and AC/DC, so that's fine.
Well, it's like I think ultimately it's just with Guardians. They're playing classic. It's classic rock. I mean, I don't know what it's 1970s
To
and
early
60s
80s,
to early
yeah.
80s classic. It's classic rock. So it's rock that most people can digest.
Because they're thus far, it is untitled. In fact, they should just release it that way. It should just be the untitled Avengers movie. Because then you won't know what's going on. The trailer could just be like a white image, and then just like the untitled Avengers movie, and everybody will be like, "Well, now I got to see this. I have literally no idea who's even in it."
And it just ends up being Deadpool.
I have an idea for a teaser trailer. They have to get the Pena guy from Ant-Man to just recap what happened. Since this is a new phase, just have him be like, "My brother's sisters, or like my brother's girlfriend's sister saw this guy," and like he just goes through this whole story and everything, and it just recaps like what happened in the first.
Well, then it's got to definitely have a cameo by Stan Lee in that teaser.
It always does.
And I
Steve
get
Ditko.
No, and I get it completely, and you've met him and everything, and I'm sure he's a legend and all that stuff. My 2 cents, it takes me out of the movie whenever I see him. It's like, oh yeah, that guy who's in every single one of them, and I get it. Don't get me wrong.
Definitely
I
reminds you
respect
that-
him immensely. It's just the point that it takes me out of the movie. It takes me out of the story. So.
It doesn't. It just reminds me.
You're just fine with
hey,
it, yeah.
this is the guy. This is the guy. Most of these characters in this movie, he co-created. So
He's
I'm
the
cool
guy.
with that.
He's the guy, and the
guy.
guy behind the guy.
Actually, good.
So one of my favorites, two of my favorite people in this film were Paul Bettany and
Elizabeth Olsen.
Elizabeth
My
Olsen.
bad.
Yeah, but what's her character's name?
Scarlet Witch.
Scarlet Witch. That's right.
Yeah, I like them a lot. Really, there were no characters in this that I didn't like. A lot of surprises, though. A lot of surprise cameos.
I've always wanted to be in a movie as an extra, but I wanted to be like Untitled Gangbanger number 4. Like some ridiculous weird name. But
Like, is Hugo even mentioned? Was that him? Because he stepped back.
I am so glad you brought that up because
Well,
I couldn't tell.
I know.
We couldn't tell if it was really Hugo Weaving or if it was someone actually.
Well, it looked like the face was
Yeah.
completely CG as opposed to the combination of makeup and CG. And
Which is what they
Hugo
did before,
Weaving
right?
himself kind of stepped back from
Right.
big Hollywood films because he went, I've done all these Transformers and Lord of the Rings and
Right.
Hobbit and Marvel and
Made a bunch of
Matrix and V for Vendetta, but I don't get to play, like, he didn't enjoy playing those roles after a while because it's all makeup and CG. So he started going back, I think, to theater and more like smaller scale films. So I don't know. It sounded like him, but it could have been just a imitate, somebody impersonating him.
It was a great scene. Sorry, spoiler. The Red Skull.
Is
in the movie. It was great. It was great to see him. But yeah, as we unfortunately, it's a shame because he was the best part, or second best part of the first Avenger.
Well, for me, Red Skull is like an iconic villain, is big as Captain America, and I've always been kind of disappointed that he was only in the one movie.
Yeah, that's just
kind of
disappointed.
Listed. Well, and especially, he's kind of a Nazi. I mean, so that's
kind of a Nazi.
So it's like
his mom was a Nazi, so he's only
big scary
Nazi.
Red guy, skull guy, but he's also a Nazi. So that's
actually, he's a Hydra agent who's working with the Nazis, but he's not so much about like we hate these people over here. He's like, I just want this power, and then I'll just kill you all. He's more like Stalin.
Yeah.
But no, it was a lot of surprising cameos. Peter Dinklage.
Yeah,
that was awesome.
That was great.
I think that was the biggest part in the movie, like size-wise.
Yeah, no, literally. Ben was like, "Hey, that's a big surprise." I'm all literally. Big surprise.
Oh, thank you.
That was great to see him. That was great to see him in there. It seemed like his moments were a little. They seemed like they were forced, but I don't know. I couldn't tell. Like, I don't know. It just seemed like they kind of rushed his lines, but I don't know. I could.
Well, I mean, they probably filmed his stuff in a day.
Yeah.
I still keep wishing that Natalie Portman would still pop in, because we never saw what really happened between Thor and her, and I would love for her to. We had dialogue, cutaway dialogue.
Well, apparently there was like some bad blood on set. Apparently that's just what I've read. Like there was just it's like apparently Natalie Portman sometimes a challenge to deal with. So I think there was kind of like some they just.
She is gangsta.
At least what some people were saying is that they didn't have good chemistry or something. I thought the chemistry was fine. I actually really liked.
She made a good Jane.
Yeah, it was, and it's a shame that we won't see her.
Stellan Skarsgård should have at least had a cameo. I mean, they kept putting in characters from all the other movies. You got General Thunderbolt Ross in there from the Hulk movie, like Gwyneth Paltrow from the Iron Man films. The Spider-Man's best buddy from Homecoming. Like, it would have been nice to just have like Stellan Skarsgård as the Swedish scientist show up again, just in a scene,
Yeah.
Plus, I like Stellan Skarsgård.
See,
so
that's one of the things I really liked about this is those giant weird space rings. Like they
those
show
were
up,
cool.
but it's like it seems like every time you get one of those in a movie, they're like show up and they just hang out there for like a week, long enough for people to be like, oh, I'm gonna study this for a little bit, and then like. It becomes that.
Not so much in this movie.
Yeah, this one it's like they show up and people start dying.
Yeah,
and it's like that's where it makes sense because they're just like, we're not going to take time to do this. We're just going to hit and run. Yeah,
man, this movie was all over the place.
Yeah,
I'm very excited.
But we all did love it. I thought it's definitely up there in my top 2. I'm gonna put Winter Soldier first, Infinity War second, Civil War third.
I would say that. For the big team up movies, Infinity War is the best.
Yeah, but you're gonna.
But on its own merits, I think Winter Soldier. I mean, yes, it does have Falcon and it does have Black Widow in it. But for the most part, it's like a political thriller. It kind of stands on its own, like Ant-Man and Doctor Strange and the First Guardians. They're just Doctor Strange was so much fun. It was such a wild ride.
Part of me actually because I saw the animated one first.
Oh yeah,
and I loved that. Yeah. I freaking loved, and so part of me is actually torn between those two. I love those both equally. If you haven't seen the animated Doctor Strange, it's fantastic. Check it out. That was great, and Doctor Strange. Jeez, I forgot that was. I can't believe I didn't put that in my top 3. Jeez, I'm a jerk.
No.
Anyway.
Oh wait. We don't. It doesn't have to be like MCU now.
MCU currently. What's your top 3 in the MCU?
I'd say this one barely, by like this much, beat out Captain America from 1990.
Yeah.
That one was good because there's this part where he throws a shield and then he catches it and looks down at the camera and goes. and then walks off to fight.
Yes.
And it was just so great. It kind of blew it all out of the water.
And Stone Temple Pilots did the entire soundtrack. Really quick.
I think you should see this film. If you're a fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I think it's a must. If you haven't seen all 19 films yet, I say get on that and get out to theaters and see it as soon as possible, because it really felt like for the first time, there's a lot of event movies, and I go and see them and I go, I mean, it was fun, it was entertaining, but hardly an event. This actually did feel like an event. This felt like the culmination of a decade of my life.
It was almost edge of your seat, stuff. But
yeah.
I mean, I think there was a lot of that closest to happening there, but there were real stakes and real weight happening.
Yeah.
But the main thing that comes from this is like what you said, it's a cataclysmic event. But it's like, you look at all the other Marvel movies, Thor: The Dark World, like, it deals with just like, London.
Yeah.
Or, and it's like the first Avengers movie, New York.
Yeah.
And then it's that made up, and like literally it was a chunk of land that like went up.
Yeah.
Like, this is literally the entire universe.
One of Marvel's fictional European nation, not Kosovo, because that's real. Sokovia. Thank you.
There we go.
Sokovia, yes.
Okay, so just really quickly, let's talk about future Marvel films. We've got Deadpool 2, not part of the MCU stuff, of course. Ant-Man and Wasp, that is, of course. Venom is, I guess that it is a crossover kind of thing where it is going to kind of take place. It'd be interesting to find out when that is going to take place. And then we have Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. No, that's the animated one.
It's animated, but I don't know how it fits.
Sony
might say it fits in the same continuity. I don't know.
It probably won't.
It's a multiverse story, so who knows?
Yeah. And the New Mutants, of course, and that's a Sony thing as well.
No, that's a Fox. That's a Fox X-Men.
Oh, Fox thing. So, yeah. So
they're mutants.
And then which will not be part of it. So, anyway, it's interesting to know.
It'll be part of the Deadpool and X-Men continuity, the New Mutants.
Right. Oh, okay.
And
that's
the Gifted and Legion, because they're all
okay.
set in the same continuity. But X-Men Dark Phoenix, which is also coming out this fall.
And this will be Simon Kinberg's first directorial debut, so it's kind of a wild card. It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah.
Everybody's like really anticipating this. You mentioned right when the movie finished, you were just like, okay, so we got a year to find out what happens. What were you talking about?
The sequel to this. I think the sequel to this comes out next year. It's either next year or I don't know. They don't have a name for it, and they don't have a release date.
Thanks for hanging out with us, you guys. We really appreciate it.
Yep.
You have been watching the Fanaddicts of Film, and this is our Avengers: Infinity War in-depth review. My name is Ben.
And I'm Joe, and please like and subscribe.
Yeah, I'm Ron, and I agree with that.
And please, subscribe.